I gotten comfortable with actually being on a set and being comfortable in taking space and not kind of, kind of apologizing for your presence all the time, which I find is a really difficult thing to do personally.
Paul, I want to talk to you about the directing. Speaking of directing in blocks, Lenny Abrahamson and Hettie Macdonald are both fantastic directors in their own right. Beautiful Thing is just one of my favourite films of all time. So I was so excited to see Hettie on this. Tell us about adjusting to their different styles of directing and the impact that that had on your performance.
Um, I I don't I find this is probably a cop-out, but I find it very hard to remember the detail of the ship. I think what was useful was as so Lenny directed the first block, and at the point in which Hetty entered, it was episode 7, and I played Connell for 2.5 months at this point. So it was very I gotten comfortable with actually being on a set and being comfortable in taking space and not kind of, kind of apologizing for your presence all the time, which I find is a really difficult thing to do personally. And I don't know, that was kind of the adjustment period. And once I kind of had that kind of scary feeling of feeling like I was comfortable with him now, Hetty kind of came in on, and that was totally due to the kind of connection that I had with Lenny and Daisy, and it felt very kind of intimate in approach, that like notes would be given carefully and quietly and intimately. It wasn't for everybody, it was for me or Daisy or Colette. So I felt confident and safe in that, and Hetty really took the mantle as well. And she, like, the latter half of the series for Connell is kind of where the wheels start to fall off a bit. And she has like she worked in the theater as well, so she had a really like technical approach in certain aspects to like unlocking scenes with like the words. And I found like with the scene with, say, the therapist, for example, that really useful, that there's certain triggers, and when she kind of pulled focus to certain sentences, you go, oh, it makes total sense why that's
Yeah.
triggering an emotion, because of the work that had been previously done in the first 6 episodes. So it felt really quite seamless. And it's also a thing of the guys have mentioned that kind of level of exhaustion and fatigue, and it's kind of like you just get to a point with it where it's like you're prepped, you're ready, you're tired, you're fine, you're safe, you're doing, and like you kind of remind yourself that you sign up to do this because you have this obligation to yourself to kind of play characters that challenge you and put yourself. Actually, I don't want to speak on behalf of the people, but it's like I enjoy putting myself in a position of discomfort with characters because it allows me to interrogate it in a safe place for me, if that makes sense. Um, so that has nothing to do with the question that you originally asked, but I personally found that their approach was really quite similar in terms of the characters were at the very center of motivating their decisions, and that made it quite easy to kind of transition into those.
I love it when answers go off track. It's the
Sorry.
best.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And quickly, like Connell is a man of simple pleasures. It's not like there are outlandish costumes or wigs to get you into character. So, what was like the final part of the process of becoming Connell each time you were on set?
Um, I talked to Sally about it. Sally Rooney, who wrote the book. When I first got the part, I was talking to her about her adaptation for television, and she was like, Connell was really hard to write in the first episode because in the book context, she was like, he doesn't say anything for the first kind of. He says a couple of words here and there, and then I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, okay, and this is kind of wanky actor talk, but I was like, okay, if he's not saying a lot, there's lots of references to him kind of making noises, like little, like
Oh, the yeah,
like
yeah,
little
yeah,
like
yeah.
all of those things. When you start actually just doing them mechanically, I was like, I would kind of do that before we go, because it incites a kind of anxiety for a character like that. It's like
Yeah.
they're ticks and triggers because I feel like he walks around in a very like similar body to myself. So it's like finding that kind of back-footed kind of I think he's a great observer, so it was kind of like stepping back, retreating into to him a little bit, and kind of just little tricks like vocal ticks and kind of internal rhythms and stuff. I found that really useful.
That's so interesting. I guess for Papa, for you, it's completely kind of contrasted, because that there is so much playfulness in the costumes and the makeup in I May Destroy You. It's been nominated this year. And so how was that to kind of find your way to the character of Kwame?
Yeah, great. I mean, we were lucky to work with great artist and designer. We had Lindsay Moore and Bethany Swan as our makeup designer and costume designer. And yeah, I guess for Kwame, like perhaps like I don't actually walk in as similar a body to Kwame, and so like hair, makeup, costume was really useful for me, because it helped me kind of like bridge that distance or make that distance towards the character. And like for him particularly, so like his, you know, his clothes are like his armor. They're like another skin. They're like another layer for him. He wears so many different masks, and we see them kind of like taken off and put on at various points in the show. But costume is a big, or clothes, fashion is a big part of that for him. You know, it helps him feel confident. It helps him feel like he can fly in the face of whatever's put in front of him. And, you know, like there's a kind of contrast between that and like if you've got something tangible to kind of put on, it kind of allows you to be like more vulnerable when you can take it off. You know, you can focus on like something that's a little bit more raw, maybe, or more exposed underneath, you know? So like it was good to kind of like make a distance towards something, but also useful to kind of like use as a counterpoint for those moments where yeah, we see a bit more vulnerability from him.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the importance of capturing those moments of just joy throughout I May Destroy You, alongside all of the trauma.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, look, like there are many uses or many attributes that, you know, we tell stories for many reasons, you know, and I think I May Destroy You, like, to be fair, I think even when it was pitched, it wasn't pitched as a kind of drama, you know, and it definitely wasn't pitched as a kind of like examination or meditation on trauma. Mm-hmm. It was, you know, a show about many things, but I suppose like focusing on three central figures who are just like young Black Brits living in London and coming up against like many challenging things in life, you know, and some of those things are like traumatic and difficult and brutal, and you know, a lot of the stories about like the journey to kind of take that on and move through that. But like it's also about friendship, and it's about love, and it's about joy. And you know, I think there is something radical sometimes about seeing that, and especially seeing that from young Black Brits on television in Britain on BBC One. You know, it's like I kind of grew up watching BBC One. I remember, like, you know, grew up watching it when it was 4 channels before Channel 5, you know, and like it wasn't something that you often saw. Like the real kind of like trailblazing shows like Desmond's or whatever, but like, you know, just like having the right to kind of like live in your own skin and enjoy that and be proud of that and share that, it feels radical, you know. So that was for us definitely completely as important a focus of our attentions as you know, the level of detail that needed to be attended to for the more traumatic moments.
And I do love how you are seeing these 3 young people who are friends. There's no romantic attachments between them. It feels incredibly authentic. Did you have to work very hard to develop that camaraderie? Was it really, really natural? Did it all just click? Kind of what we like to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to do them dirty like that, you know. Like, I would love to say that we're just brilliant actors, you know, and like we actually hate each other, and we just like made it work for the scenes. But no, like Michaela and Marucha are wonderful, amazing, inspiring women, and just like really easy. I've known Michaela a long time actually. I went to drama school with her, so we've got a kind of like pre-existing relationship. But I'd never met Marucha until I think the day of our first read through or whatever. But like she is like so much of Terry, you know, so much of the kind of sunshine that kind of shines out of that face, that character's face, and is her, you know. She's just like a very vivacious person, full of life and humor, and just like she's brilliant, you know. So like it just makes your job easier when people are wonderful, but also to kind, I suppose, to kind of like jump off of what Sean was saying earlier on, there was also a kind of, there was a commitment to what we were doing, you know. It was like, yeah, like it was like, this is still work, and like there were some really, really difficult things that we have to investigate through this story, and you can choose to kind of like do it cosmetically, or you can choose to kind of like do it because it looks good, or you can choose to really investigate it and dig deep into it. And to be able to do that, you need to be you know, surrounded by people who also are committed to doing it. And like I think I was very fortunate, or we were very fortunate to, you know, be surrounded by people who were ready to jump in both feet and get into deep, deep, deep water and not kind of shy away from it. It's a real privilege to find yourself in a room with artists who are willing to do that and do it again, you know, do it, go home, sleep, repeat, you know. It's a taxing thing to do. But yeah, we were very fortunate to, you know, you're bonded by those experiences as well, which then again kind of like feeds into the relationships you're trying to build. So yeah, magical in many ways.